Hi, Michelle Glass here. Welcome back to another episode of Chapter 12, Lecture 12 series. We've been talking about the action potential on the neuron, how it's generated. Our job in this video is to talk about how it's propagated or how it's traveling on that excitable membrane. Propagation is the best term to use here because we see that you have the same set of steps repeated over and over and over again until you run out of excitable membrane. Again, in propagation, we're going to see the movement of the action potential from the cell body to the synapse, always in that one direction because of a refractory period. We can think about propagation as a constant retelling of the story. So if you've ever played that game, telephone, where you whisper in somebody's ear and then they whisper to the next and they whisper to the next and so forth, but except in this case, you're getting that same story told, repeated over and over and over without making any changes. Propagation can either be continuous or what's called saltatory. In continuous propagation, this is happening on unmyelinated axons, and it's a little bit slower, but this is typical of the central nervous system where neurons are very close together. The saltatory propagation is happening with myelinated axons. It's a much faster transmission of signal, and you're going to see that all peripheral nervous system neurons are going to be myelinated, and that's good because those axons are very long, and so we need that signal to travel very fast. And we do have some saltatory propagation happening in the CNS. Now, it's not saltatory as in salty, but as in salta, which is talking about to jump. It's a Latin term or Spanish term for jumping. Okay, continuous propagation. So I'm drawing my cell body, my axon hillock, and my axon. Remember, at the axon hillock, this is where that signal is generated. So remember, you're going to need to have a synapse with another neuron. That neuron is releasing acetylcholine, which is binding to chemically gated sodium channels so that we get that graded potential. Once we take that cell membrane to threshold, we get the opening up of voltage-gated sodium channels, and we get that initial big influx of sodium. So we're going to assume here that that's what's happened, and so we have a bunch of sodium already moved into the cell. That sodium, remember, is spreading by local current, so that's how we're going to get that very next section of membrane to threshold. Once it's at threshold, we're going to have an action potential. Notice the piece behind is in refractory period. So even though that sodium, that local current is spreading both ways, we only get the action potential going in one direction. This sodium then is going to take that next spread by local current, take that next section of membrane to threshold. The piece behind is in refractory period. We get our action potential, and then this just continues to happen as we go through the whole length of the axon. Now notice with continuous propagation, I'm taking it backwards here. That might be a bad choice. Let me go back to maybe this picture. Notice with your continuous propagation, it's the whole length, every single piece. So clearly kind of slow. And again, it's like that constant retelling. So that's why you have this term propagation instead of really travel. In saltatory propagation, this is occurring with myelinated axons, and remember, it's going to be super duper fast in comparison. All of your axons in the peripheral nervous system are myelinated, so this is going to be the type of propagation that's happening in the PNS. The PNS myelination is from those Schwann cells. The central nervous system has those oligodendrocytes, which are myelinating those axons. So remember, these are examples of our neuroglia cells. Again, saltatory propagation, that myelination, we're speeding up the propagation. And we also see myelination is important in the repair of axons. So we'll talk about Wallerian degeneration. Okay, so saltatory, remember, means jumping. So we're going to have Schwann cells wrapped around our axons. That's making our myelination. Those internodes are not excitable membranes. They're not going to do anything in terms of the action potential. We're going to see the action potential is going to jump from node to node to node to node. Now, the basic mechanism is the same. So we're still going to see that the axon hillock is where the action potential is first generated. You'd have another neuron releasing acetylcholine, opening up those chemically gated sodium channels, taking the membrane to threshold, giving us the voltage-gated sodium channels, allowing sodium to move in, and then we're going to have it spread by local current. But notice it spreads all the way to that next node. That node then is at threshold, so we open up voltage-gated sodium channels, sodium comes in, it spreads by local current. Notice the piece behind is in refractory period. And so clearly it's a lot faster to do the saltatory where you're doing node to node to node instead of continuous every single itsy bitsy piece of membrane. Okay, that's it for now.